Welcome. If you have clicked on this video, that means that you are interested in the Met Gala 2026. Now, it could be that you're interested in the Met Gala because you are a fan of fashion. It could be you have clicked on this video to learn more about the Met Gala because you're angry about it, which is totally fine. We're going to get into like all of it. You also might have clicked on this video because you just watch all of my videos and you're like, oh my God, Abby finally posted again. Hi, how are you? I have life updates. So if you are a subscriber and a viewer like long-term, stay till the end. Either way, you've clicked on this video because you have thoughts about the Met Gala, and I am here to talk about it. So we're going to cover why the Met Gala exists and why it's important and why it's fundamentally a good thing. And we're also going to talk about numbers, how much the Met Gala earns, why it's so expensive, etc. We're also going to talk about the Met Gala of 2026, what the exhibition is about and what the gala dress code is about. I got you. I am actually really excited about this exhibition that they're doing. And then finally, we will also be talking about the Bezos problem and what the critiques around the Bezos is with the Met Gala. Now, why am I qualified to talk about this? One, I am a dress historian. So the Met Gala is important to me on multiple levels because the Met Gala is one of the few very public cases or situations where my field of study is actually celebrated. So I'm coming at this as someone who understands the museum issues around the Met Gala, has worked as a dress historian for 20 fucking years at this point. Oh my God, guys. Holy shit. By the way, this video is coming out on my 40th birthday. I am a maker. I study historic clothing. I can make historic clothing. I'm obviously very interested in modern fashion as a result. And as a historian, at the end of the day, I am a nosy bitch. And the conversations that are going on around the Met Gala are so fascinating as specifically a dress historian because on one hand, I'm like, well, okay, but this means this. And on the other hand, I'm like, burn them all, eat the rich. Like, yeah. You know, it's a duality also. I'm a Libra rising if you don't know this. So the sponsor of today's video is Ritual, a supplement company that believes in making effective, high quality, and traceable supplements that work for everyone. I've always really enjoyed taking Ritual's Adult Woman, like 18 plus multivitamin one. I think they're really cute. They crack me up, but it's just a really effective way to get kind of like the main heavy hitters, you know, your vitamin D, B12, E, K2, your iron, your magnesium, your folate, your boron, your omega-3s. And because of like that really cool, like patented technology they have for their capsules, that's why you're able to take the folate and the vitamin D at the same time, because you actually have like this cool mix of oil and dry product in like the singular capsule. You take 2 capsules either in the morning or the evening, whatever works for you and your schedule, it doesn't really matter. But when they reached out to me this time, they had a product I hadn't tried before, and that is the Ritual Magnesium Plus, because I really care about like getting a good night's sleep. Magnesium has always had an impact on that. It also helps with like muscle relaxation and things like that. The magnesium is a bioavailable magnesium. I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I will butcher it and we don't need to do that. But it's just one of those that your body can absorb better. So then that way it lessens the risks of GI side effects. And if you don't know what I mean by GI side effects, count yourself lucky that you've never consumed that much magnesium because one day you will. One day you will. It happens, I think, to everybody. But this one in particular also has tart cherry in it, and tart cherry has had clinical studies showing that it does actually improve like relaxing the mind, but also like promoting a really good night's sleep. All you have to do is mix 2 teaspoons of this with 8 ounces of water and you drink it at night. So it's like a nice little like bedtime ritual. The other thing I really like about Ritual is that they're really, really transparent in how they acquire their materials and their ingredients for their product. So on every product page, they have a certificate of traceability. And when you open that up, you can see what third-party tests have been done for heavy metals and microbes, but also they list each ingredient and where it comes from. So that way you know exactly what you're putting into your body. Ritual also offers a subscription service, and you also get free shipping when you subscribe. And a 30-day money-back guarantees if you don't like the product. If you do want to give Ritual a try, for all of my viewers, they're actually offering a 25% discount if you use the code AbbyCox25. So you can either go to ritual.com/abbycox25. You can click the link in the description, or if you're watching this like on a TV or computer screen and you have your phone available, you can just scan this QR code and it'll take you directly to the website. So that way you can give Ritual a try yourself. With that, a huge thank you to Ritual for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. So why does the Met Gala exist? To explain why the Met Gala exists, we need to go back almost 100 years. World War I has ended. The American fashion industry is booming. And as a result, there is this huge push for a way to celebrate the American fashion industry and American clothing industry becoming a leader of fashion. Because up until that point, American fashion was not a leader in any capacity. So it was basically a kind of way to be like, oh, like France is not in a good place right now. Like Paris is not doing all right. There's starting to be these conversations, especially in industry publications. So specifically Women's Wear Daily, which is an industry like newspaper. This is where all of this information is coming out. Morris DeCamp Crawford is like, he's calling for the advent of a costume museum, especially in New York, as early as 1917, to celebrate American fashion and to celebrate American clothing, but also because he viewed costume as art. And by costume, I think it's important because we're going to use this word a lot. I'm not talking about movie costumes or theater costumes or Halloween costumes. Costumes are being used in a very generic way to say clothing and like everything related to clothing. Now, in the 1920s and 30s, we do start to see more costuming exhibitions coming up, especially in New England. And the Museum of Costume Art is founded in the mid-1930s. I think it's 1937, but it might be a little bit earlier. It's a little fuzzy for me. I haven't dug too deep into this because ultimately for this conversation, it's not that important. But what does matter is that in the 1930s, the Museum of Costume Art was founded. And they started doing exhibitions at like the Rockefeller Center and the Waldorf Astoria in New York. It wasn't like a permanent museum space. It grows to such a degree. It was decided that the Metropolitan Museum of Art was going to absorb the Museum of Costume Art. And this was in 1944. As a part of this merger, if you will, it was decided that the Museum of Costume Art, which will then be known as the Costume Institute, is going to be responsible for covering its own maintenance and operation fees. So while the museum will give it space, there was nothing in the budget for like the museum as a whole that will be designated for this curatorial department. The Costume Institute from the beginning has always had to be self-funded. Is this because of misogyny? Maybe. Probably. Is it because it was its own institution, essentially, that was absorbed into the museum? Also, that could be part of it too. I don't know. Now, with that being said, what's really interesting about the Costume Institute is that it was always something that the American apparel and fashion industry was supportive of. And when you're going through the newspapers, you'll see where it's like, oh, the Silk Guild has donated $100 to the Costume Institute's Dorothy Shearer, who was, I think at the time, a vice president of Lord & Taylor. I don't think she was president yet. Okay, I'm going to make this super fast because I have other people in the house and this is embarrassing, but I need to do this. I'm an idiot. I am stupid because I kept saying Dorothy Shearer and not Dorothy Shaver. The woman I'm talking about is Dorothy Shaver. She was the president of Lord & Taylor. She was the driving force behind the Met Gala becoming what it was. She was the chair. And if you hear banging, we're going to ignore that. Not Shearer. Obviously close. That's what I get for not writing a script and just kind of freeballing it. You know what I mean? But anyways, her name's Dorothy Shaver. And she's iconic. So apologies to her spirit and to everyone screaming at their screen right now who knew I was saying her name wrong. And to any of her offspring, I apologize. Because it's pretty rich. I'm like, she needs more attention. And then I butcher her name. Anyways, that's it. But the vice president was really kind of the spearhead behind this. Eleanor Lambert gets a lot of promotion and like a lot of attention because she was the one who kind of had the idea of the Met Gala or the Party of the Year. But I want to call attention to Dorothy Shearer because she was the one who was really rallying the industry behind the Costume Institute. Manufacturers were donating, stores were donating, guilds were donating. Like, this was about the American apparel industry. It's America's fashion legacy. Okay, I think that's a really good way to kind of put this, even though they were displaying non-Western clothes too. I was actually surprised how many exhibitions they were talking about that actually featured non-Western clothing, because there is a huge problem with racism in clothing as art and costume as art, because Western clothes will end up in an art collection and non-Western clothes will end up in an anthropology collection. And it's in 1948 that Eleanor Lambert has the idea of hosting what is called the Party of the Year. It was not called the Met Gala at this time. It was literally called the Party of the Year because it was the party of the year for the industry. And it happened around Thanksgiving, early December. So it was just a time where everyone in the industry could come together, make fun of themselves, laugh, drink, dance, have a good time, celebrate another year, and all the while help fund the maintenance fees for the Costume Institute. First one happened in 1948, and that one was a much smaller affair, and it earned $27,000. In modern money, that's $400,000. The following year, we get more information. Tickets are going on sale for $50 a plate because it was dinner. And they had 600 tickets available. Okay, so that's actually a pretty big number. And they earned around $30,000. $30,000 in 1949, that's about $411,000. In 1950, still $50 a plate, but 700 people in attendance. And that brings us up to $35,000 in 1950 money and $480,000 according to inflation. By 1953, they've also like really ramped up who like the ticketed attendance. Do you know that they earned $50,000? So that's around $620,000. 1957 though, everything goes crazy. $100 a plate. And so they earn over $100,000 for the Costume Institute in 1957. And that comes out to $1.1 million in today's money. And where in 1956, only $79,000 had been earned. And the article from 1957 about this, it says funds are ticketed for expansion of the Institute's internationally famed costume collection and research facilities. In 1959, I'm a little confused. I think there might have been an error in like the journalism, because it's saying that it still earned around $100,000 and it was $100 per plate, but there were 2,000 guests. That math doesn't really quite math. But the quote is the $100,000 raised through this 13th annual Party of the Year, bringing the total sum raised to $800,000 in the past 12 years by fashion retailers and producers. And at the event, the director of the Met Museum explained that they needed another $400,000 to complete the program of renovation and expansion of the Institute's quarters. They've already planned it. It's been approved. They're still just fundraising for it. Okay. And this is still very normal in museum world today. This is very standard stuff. That's $1 million in 1950s money. So like if 100K is about 1.1 million, then we know 800 is at least 8 million. So they're looking at renovations costing anywhere between $4 to $8 million. Dude, in 1959. Now, we're going to flash forward a lot, okay? But I wanted to give you guys a really solid understanding of what those early years, because it's always been expensive, it's always been a high earner, and it's had to be. But most importantly to me, what I found interesting is how it was very wrapped up in the industry. Reading about it, what's fun is they talk about what happens. And so part of like how it worked is you obviously had the dinner and you had dancing, but people within the industry would spend like the year like coming up with skits and songs and dances and like just like kind of like fun, like cheeky performances. I think it was in 1959 or 57. It was in one of those where a chorus of boys, so like men in the industry, got together. They dressed in funny costumes and like they sang a song to like I Love Paris. In the springtime, it was I Hate Paris. It's very tongue in cheek. They're making fun of each other. They're inside jokes, and it's just a way to build camaraderie, right? But the other things they were doing for fundraising was a bunch of like fashion photographers. They would have photographers row, and a bunch of fashion photographers would donate their time, and attendants could pay these fashion photographers to take their portrait and take their photo at the event and all this stuff. You know, you get a nice little like go home gift. But that was another way that they were like earning money within this event. There were also like gift baskets, I think raffles too. So these sorts of galas still exist today. They're in your local cities, whether it's for like the local humane society or, you know, the theaters or art museums or whatever. Like we still rely on these sorts of events. Eleanor Lambert actually lives until 2003. Dorothy Shearer passes away in the late 1950s. She was the brains behind the organization of the Party of the Year. And when she passed away, that's kind of when things started to get a little unmoored, if you will. Now, let's flash forward a little bit to 1992. And the reason I'm flashing forward to 1992 is because talking about the 60s, 70s, and 80s is just kind of whatever. In 1992, the price per plate was around $900. So obviously every year it had gone up, and that only 525 people were invited. So that's the other thing that starts to shift. It starts to become the Met Gala. And it becomes more about celebrity and more about fame than industry, which conveniently is also mirrors the demise of the American apparel industry. There's definitely something to that. The union started to get broken up. Garment manufacturing left the United States for other countries. Department stores started to merge, and everything became a monopoly and bloated and started to fall apart. That's also when the Party of the Year / Met Gala started to centralize more on celebrity. Interestingly, 1992, they had two ticket prices. So that $900 a plate is for the dinner. Those are the main donors. And that was 525 people. But later that night, you could get in if you paid like $125 a tickets to like schmooze and dance and have a good time and party. And that actually pulled in 1,200 people.
Anna Wintour has overseen both the benefit committee and the guest list of the gala since 1995.
And she is the one who really did transform it into what we know today. I will say this very neutrally. While I have thoughts about Anna Wintour and thoughts about her influence on fashion as a whole and everything that I don't like and I'm not necessarily impressed by, I can say that her work for the Costume Institute is ultimately a net good. Was it self-serving? Sure. But like ultimately what she's been able to do for the Costume Institute through the Met Gala and through her fundraising is nothing short of impressive. And she does deserve to have her name on a wall and for a room and for a gallery. I'm going to say that.
Anna Wintour's benefaction for so long, almost 16 years. And because of that, we've been able to completely redo the Costume Institute spaces. The facility is transformed, and all of that is due to Anna Wintour's support.
Now we're going to flash forward to when like the Met Gala really started to come into our social consciousness, and that's going to be in the 2010s. 2014, $12 million was earned. In 2015, the individual tickets were being sold for $25,000, or a table of 10 could be purchased for $175,000. And I will be talking about those tables of 10s shortly. In 2022, it was $35,000 a ticket. 2023, $50,000 a ticket. In 2024, the Met Gala was $75,000 a ticket or $350,000 per table of 10. In 2024, they earned $26 million for the Costume Institute. That's $4 million more than what they earned in 2023, which was $22 million. Now, something interesting happened around this time, like the numbers just like skyrocket. In 2023, it was announced that the Costume Institute was going to have new galleries installed on the main level right off the Great Halls. The galleries were going to take over the 11,500 square foot gift shop. That endeavor to renovate that space and make it functional for textile and clothing exhibition, it was priced out to be around $50 million. That's $50 million plus in addition to the Costumes Institute's maintenance and operation fees. That's covering salaries, storage and conservation work, covering acquisition expenses. That's an additional $50 million. The Costume Institute's exhibition space forever was in this really random, dark, hard to find basement suite of galleries. And it was truly treated like an afterthought, where it's like, well, okay, we can have something up now because we don't have like a big painting exhibition that we need to like use the space for other things. Like even with their own funding, like the Costume Institute's exhibitions were often treated as a second thought by the museum. So with that being said, the Met Gala and bringing the Met Gala to the forefront of our consciousness, to this level of popularity and interest that it is at today, ultimately is one of the biggest reasons why the Costume Institute and fashion history and fashion exhibitions in museums have been able to achieve what they've been able to achieve. Interest in fashion as art has increased exponentially compared to what it was. It used to be like just desperate for like me as like growing up trying to find a antique clothing exhibition. Like it was almost impossible. And now they are the blockbuster exhibitions that sell out. And it's rare now to even have an art exhibition and not have some sort of piece of clothing on display. And some of the coolest exhibitions happening right now are this duality of having paintings like Sargent and then like having the gowns worn in the portraits like on display next to them. Anna Wintour was fundraising and organizing the Met Gala to earn money so the Costume Institute can have a massive gallery that is literally in the most accessible location. Like this is the cream of the crop location when you walk into the Met. It is right there. You can't miss it.
With the new galleries, we are expanding our long-standing commitment to collecting and presenting fashion within the context of our, yes, indeed, vast global collection. And we are doing that, we are creating these galleries, also improving and reimagining the visitor experience in this very important place at the kind of crossroads at the museum, how visitors come together.
Now, this actually brings me to the exhibition. What is the Met's Costume Institute's 2026 exhibition? The exhibition is called Costume Art. This is just a really efficient way to say, an artistic way to be like, it's that costume is, there's a parentheses there, is art. And this is the inaugural exhibition in this new massive gallery space, is basically a really incredible like suck it moment for everyone who used to say like, clothing, fashion's not art, clothing's not art, it's just clothes. It's and like this constant like degradation of like clothing as art, because clothing historically has been considered women's work and women's art has never been valued as much as male-dominated art. But by having this exhibition called Costume Art, or Costume is Art, what Andrew Bolton has done with this exhibition, the way it's organized, is that there's going to be 400 pieces on display in total. 200 like traditional art pieces, so like paintings and sculptures and whatnot, and then furniture pieces, whatever. And then 200 clothing pieces as art. And for every one normal piece of art, there is a clothing piece next to it. And the way they have displayed these pieces and the way they're going to display them is by having the 2D art, the traditional art, level with the clothing to kind of show them as equals. And I think that's awesome. And it's going to be like stuff from all over the museum. It's not just like paintings, right? It's sculpture. It's everything. Like it sounds really cool. And it sounds like a really great way to not only celebrate clothing and costume as art, but also to celebrate the Costume Institute and what it has achieved in 80 years? 80 years? Let's see. Yeah, 80 years. I do think there is one really interesting choice, and I understand why this choice was made by Andrew Bolton when it comes to how the exhibition is organized. You need to have some sort of like storytelling, some interpretive experience, some intentionality with how things are organized.
So in short, costume art is a celebration of the body in all of its strengths and weaknesses, its resiliences and vulnerabilities, its perfections and imperfections, its idiosyncrasies and commonalities, and above all, its sublime beauty, its wondrous complexity, and its glorious and miraculous diversity.
Because clothing is wearable art. And that's like what makes fashion and clothing such an interesting art, is that it's not stagnant, it's not still, it has movement. It interacts with the body that's wearing it, and the body that's wearing the garment is a part of the art as well. The problem is the Met is the Met has a big problem with sizeism. My friend Kenna wrote her master's on fat phobia in like antique clothing collection and display, and the Met is like one of the worst offenders. Also, there's this like ongoing like lingering issue of like this preference for skinny white mannequins. It's just a little it's like that's weird choice. I'll be curious to see how Bolton handles this, because he's not known for being inclusive. Editing Abby here, dropping in real fast to kind of add on to this like discussion of the body, because as of like last night, AP released an article titled "Most Fashion Mannequins Are About a Size 2. The Met Gala exhibit is making room for diverse bodies." And it's being picked up, and that's like the big headline and everything is the Met Gala and and Andrew Bolton's like, most mannequins are a size 2. Here's the thing. They did this for the Women Dressing Women exhibition, which by the way, I did not like. I had a lot of issues with that exhibition. They started doing this thing where the Met will have actual body scanned. Cool. They're real people that are scanned to wear these different types of clothes. On one hand, that's really cool. That's really neat to see like these different people's body types represented. The problem is these mannequins then can only wear the garments that are intended for like that look. The latest one is designer Michaela Stark, and she has a lingerie brand called Panty, which I hate that fucking word. I think I might have to blur out the mannequin, because like it's her body that's been turned into a white plastic mannequin with like the corset on it, and like it looks really cool. Don't get me wrong. However, it is completely useless for anything but like that specific garment. So is that actually inclusivity when the Met has thousands of pieces in their collection, and many of them are actually for larger bodies that have never been accurately displayed or correctly displayed to their size? Or is that performative? And it's like, well, look at this one cool thing that we're doing that we can get publicity for, because woo, we're being inclusive, but we've gone fucking decades not being inclusive. And like I said, this is no hate to the actual people who've been modeling for this. Like, this is great for them. I just think it just feels very performative to me, and not actually about trying to be representative of inclusivity, because out of 200 garments, I think it's like 25 are diverse body types. That's it. That's all you got. Frankly, some of the pieces being worn are repeats from the Women Dressing Women exhibition. So it's not even that actual like thought-provoking or forward-thinking. It's literally just repeating what's already been done for the sake of clout. I'll put it, Kenna wasn't impressed. Some of the types of bodies that will be used, or themes, I should say. Naked body, shocking. Classical body, shocking. Pregnant body, interesting. The aging body, anatomical body, and mortal body. There's also, I think, like the abstract body. And so they're kind of opening, there's certain things that are like very cut and dry interpretation. There's other themes that can be opened for interpretation and be more nuanced in how they're interpreted and what is being displayed. What is the theme? The theme for this year is fashion is art. So basically it is the same as the exhibition, but just with a little bit more words and a little bit more clarity. So costume art is very like ethereal, like, you know, up here and like, ooh, artisanal. Fashion is art is like the kindergarten reading level of the exhibition, right? As we all know and we love, these people who attend the Met Gala have a really hard time hitting the theme. So I think what's so funny about this theme is that you can't really fuck it up. You know, like it is, are you dressed in clothing? Yes. You could show up in Cookie Monster pajama bottoms and that would still be on theme. Why? Because Because Cookie Monster has been illustrated by hand. He is a puppet. That is art. And then it's put on the pants and the making of the pants. That itself, fashion is art. The only way I could see someone not being on theme, because really, to me, the bar for this theme is like, it's under the ground. Okay. Like, you can't even trip over it. But I swear to God, if someone shows up wearing something that was like made by AI or is in like collaboration with like some sort of generative AI, and I am sure there will be, that is not on theme, because you cannot have art with generative AI. It does not work, because generative AI is theft. Generative AI cannot make clothing art. It cannot do it. And so that is the only way you cannot be on theme, is if whatever this person has on is AI involved at all. That breaks the theme. Do I think that we'll have someone with AI? Yes, I absolutely do. Why? Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos. Every year there has to be a scandal. One year it was Kim wearing Marilyn Monroe's dress to the event, which was, I did a video about that when it came out. And then one year it was the Gilded Age. I don't think I did a video about that one. There wasn't really that much for me to say, but it was like the theme was Gilded Age, or like gilded. And it was just like, fucking yikes. Like, we are actively living in a Gilded Age right now. Like, the disparity, everything. It's like, it's somehow also worse. It's just crazy. We don't have children in the mines yet. But if some people in our government had their way, we would. Love that for us. Like 2 years ago, Kim tight-laced in a Maison Margiela corset, and like the internet blew up, and I did another video about that, like explaining this year's drama. The exhibition and the gala, the #1 sponsor for this is Jeffrey Bezos, and obviously Lauren Sanchez Bezos. Zuckerberg and Gates and Buffett, amateurs can fucking suck it. It's apparently pissed people off in the industry because, you know, it's just a billionaire dork trying to like buy street cred with the fashion industry for his wife. I'm going to say this. I do not believe there is any such thing as ethical billionaires. The only way you can make that kind of money is through the exploitation of workers and people and the environment. I do not think we should have billionaires. Full stop. I don't care who you are. If you have $1 billion in your bank account, you need to get rid of a lot of that.
We could make trillions. Why make trillions when we could make billions?
Now, with that being said, I think in this situation with Bezos, it is a broken clock is still right twice a day sort of situation. Historically, one of the reasons why we have in the United States have always been amenable, accepting, begrudgingly allowing the existence of the ultra rich is because these ultra wealthy people invested in art and community. And you can see it all around. Just go to New York. All of the museums, like all of them were funded by essentially billionaires of the Gilded Age. The Morgan Library Museum, that's JP Morgan. Chase Bank, that was his mansion that they've now turned into a library and a museum. You know, the Frick collection, that was owned by the Fricks.
And what distinguishes it is this extraordinary balance of the quality of both the collection of art and the house and the sense of its personality.
Carnegie Mellon, the Rockefellers, even Colonial Williamsburg's whole creation story is deeply entwined with the Rockefellers. If we're going to have them, I would much rather Jeffrey Bezos spend his money funding the Costume Institute than making another cock rocket to go into space with. Because that's a waste of resources. That's just stupid. That's just self-gratification, just whacking one out for himself, right? I don't need another fucking cock rocket in space. I mean, at least the Gilded Age billionaires were aware enough that they were evil, and so they were in order to protect our legacy, we need to do good here, so then that way people don't just focus on all the evil shit that we did, and it worked. It worked. Mostly. I would much rather have him do and fund this than anything that's self-serving. I mean, obviously, ending homelessness, cleaning up our waterways, other categorically good things. Less cock rocket, more good things. Donating the money to the Costume Institute, categorically a good thing. And they're getting rewarded by getting the press, the notoriety, and the attention, and the praise, and the accolades, and the ass kissing that will no doubt happen by everyone at the museum. And I am so sorry you have to do that. This is not to excuse how Amazon has destroyed so many things, from the book industry to our electrical grid, like water. I'm not using this as an excuse, okay? He is still categorically a terrible person. And Lauren Sanchez, even if she wasn't a billionaire to begin with, she is now a part of it. Categorically not a good person. No. And supporting that piece of shit that's in our office, not a good person. No. But bad people can still do neutral to good things. And so in this situation, their money going to this is a neutral good situation. They are still unlawful evil. And as much as people want to boycott the Met Gala and describe it as the Hunger Games, I understand why people feel that way. I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to explain with a lot more detail than I've ever seen anyone do is that the Met Gala is a good thing. It is a fundraiser for the arts. It pays people's salaries. And so the Met Gala, while it feels weird to watch sometimes because of how the publicity around it has been built up, it is still at the end of the day a fundraiser for a nonprofit. And a nonprofit that has always been treated like the redheaded stepchild of the Metropolitan Museum. And now that redheaded stepchild is essentially the belle of that ball. Has the prime seat in the middle of the museum. It is now special. I want to make one final point. I think a lot of conversations where people get mad is they think each individual person that is attending the Met Gala has paid for a ticket. And that is not true. In fact, most of the people that we see, the celebrities, they are not paying for the ticket there. What they're doing is they are there as a brand deal. And a really great example of this, especially in the world of YouTube, is a few years ago, YouTube actually purchased one of those tables.
Every year, YouTube has its own table curated by Derek Blasberg. Derek is the head of fashion and beauty at YouTube. Together with Anna Wintour, determines who is allowed to sort of join the Met for YouTube that year.
A corporation donated $300,000 to the Met Costume Institute, and that got them a table at the party. They then invited who they wanted to, which is why Nikki Tutorials got invited and why Eugene from the Try Guys got to go. It wasn't that Nikki and Eugene paid $75,000 for a ticket or $50,000 a ticket. They didn't pay for the ticket. They were there as guests of YouTube. Very often they'll say, I'm here with Chanel. I'm here with Schiaparelli. I'm here with Balenciaga. What they're saying is they're sitting at the table purchased by that fashion house. That fashion house donated that money to the Costume Institute for those tables. It's essentially a massive brand sponsorship. And that's also why I think a lot of the outfits can really suck. And I think that they're not on theme. It's not necessarily because the person attending doesn't understand the theme. I think it's because the brands have donated the money for these tables and they're going to put the attendees in whatever they're going to put them in. Like, they don't really have that much of a say unless like you're a really big deal. My Met Gala bingo list in no particular order, we're going to have a lot of naked bodies because of the connection to the body in the exhibition. I think that's going to be how people kind of pick up the interpretation. And we're kind of seeing this already in fashion when it comes to like what Chappell Roan wore to the Grammys with like the prosthetics. So it looked like her naked body, but it wasn't. So we had Maison Margiela a couple years ago use a lot of silicone prosthetics and like merkin wigs for the couture show. It was incredible. If we don't have Kim in a corset, I will be so upset because I'm like, Kim, it's been every other year you feed me and you make a really easy video for me to do, and I hope that you come through for me again, girl. I'm hoping that we'll have some archive McQueen because fashion is art, fashion and body. Not having like archival McQueen, oh my God, like I am hoping against, oh my God, I want archival McQueen so bad. I think we're gonna see a lot of Dior New Look stuff. I do think we're gonna see a really bad Marie Antoinette cosplay. Bonus points if they call the Marie Antoinette cosplay Victorian or Regency. I will be sad if we don't. I do think we're gonna get like also like kind of just like bustles and paniers and stuff. We're seeing that on the red carpet already. I do think we're going to see literal art on dresses. One of the other sponsors for the exhibition and the gala, which I think is actually a really good choice, is Saint Laurent. And in the 1960s, Yves Saint Laurent did a whole thing about the Mondrian on dresses, on shift dresses. But I think it's just going to be a very literal interpretation of screen printed Monets. On my wish list, I think these are like less likely, but also maybe likely, is really beautiful, intentional embroidery. I would love some beading. Specifically, I would love some indigenous beading. That would be great. It's stunning. More representation of non-Western fashions on the carpet. We're starting to see that more and more, which is good. But again, like, since this is so open as fashion is art, all clothes are fashion, all clothing is art. It's not just Western fashion. But I would also love to see European folk dress represented as art, whether it's like Swedish folk dress or, you know, Eastern European. I don't care. I am terrified, but I am assuming that we'll have something made out of AI, and that will not be on theme. I don't give a fuck. That's not on theme. If you're wearing AI, fuck you. But really quickly, if you stuck around this long, I assume that means you're here because you just watched me. And hi, I love you. Great to have you. Wanted to send you guys a really exciting update. I finished my manuscript, and it has been turned into my editor, and it is over 100,000 words about the history of corsets. But I can say, while it has been a really tough project and a really, like, I've had to work really, really hard, and I am so excited for the draft that I sent in. I'm really proud of it, honestly, and I can't wait to see like how it evolves from here until the final product. But with that in mind, what that means is now that I have that massive monkey off of my back, we're gonna get back to making more videos and like kind of coming back to this channel, because unfortunately, like, that book just took a lot of my energy away from me. And obviously I have not been uploading here as often. I went down to like once a month. And so I'm back. Hello. And with that, I can't wait. I will, hopefully, the Met Gala will feed us and we'll have fun things to talk about. And I will be able to be back here really, really soon after the Met Gala, and we can kind of debrief what happened and debrief what we saw and how it was interpreted and everything else. And yeah, so with that, thanks for watching. If you are new here and you enjoyed this video, like, you know, do the normal shit that everyone always asks you to do, but please subscribe, please hang out with me. We love talking about fashion, we love talking about fashion history, we love talking about women's history, and just having a good time. And with that, I'm gonna go eat my lunch. See you guys later. Bye. Also, special thanks again to Ritual for sponsoring this video.